All right, gang, let's try to get started. First of all, if anybody is a baseball fan, I apologize. I know I'd like to be home watching the baseball game, but they were losing anyway. For me, they were losing. Let's get started with our agenda. Welcome. Can everybody online hear just fine? Yes, very good. Thank you. So our first order of business, of course, are the minutes of the last meeting. Hopefully everybody received the minutes and hopefully everybody read the minutes. Is there any discussion, any correction for the minutes? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Please.
I move to approve.
Second, well, move and second, somebody, second, whichever hasn't been done.
Yes, seconded and approved. Love it. Okay, let's move right along here tonight. We have, I assume, Officer Winkle. We have such a police audience here. I wasn't sure who was going on. Yeah, it doesn't work. No,
It doesn't work.
just stay close to my computer. You'll be good.
Okay. So we do have special guests here tonight. Captain Tomzak had been transferred to another division. So we have a new captain, Captain Manukas. Please go easy on him, much easier than I did. This is his first day. So he'll introduce himself in just a minute. Just run over just a few crime stats for y'all. Over the past 30 days, our response to calls is down just a little bit. We only responded to 1,400 calls for service. So we've dropped about 22% calls for service in your CAC. Our top calls that we're responding to that we're handling: traffic stops, alarm calls, crashes, 911 hangups, and security checks and checks on welfare. So if you own a business, or you have camera systems at your home and you have alarms set up to them, please help us out and be familiar on how they operate and train somebody to on how they operate those cameras. Those are investigating quite a bit. It might take us, a couple of steps to get back out there to meet up with somebody, and at that time, losing valuable time. Moving on to our incident report. So now every call that we respond to is going to generate an incident report. Those are slightly down as well. We only took 180 incident reports. Leading the way, assault, larceny from motor vehicle, larceny and vandalism, and drug violations, as well as fraud, are your top 5. I read off more than just 5. Larceny and vandalism, so those were tied with 15 reports each. Again, talk to your loved ones about sharing information and not clicking on links. That's where a majority of our frauds are occurring. Police do not call and say, we will disregard your warrant for a Walmart shopping cart gift card. There's usually some version of that out there. So please just have a conversation. If it doesn't sound right, it isn't right. So with that being said, I'm gonna turn it over to Kathy.
All good. Anywhere.
Good evening, I guess. This is, as Officer Winkle said, literally my first day. So you're my first stop this evening. I don't have a whole lot to give out right now because I'm still obviously getting my feet wet. Just a little bit about myself. I'm on my 24th year in law enforcement, so I've been around the block. I just came from downtown. We spent some time on Glenwood Avenue together. So I was in charge of Glenwood South and Glenwood Avenue. So I was out there every weekend for a lot of times. So I'm looking forward to the change and the opportunity to do some different things in this side of town. So I did spend a lot of time up here. So when I made lieutenant, I was in the North District. So I'm familiar with the area. I was a beat officer for a few years in the North District. I spent a lot of time on the other side of Capitol Boulevard in the Northeast District. So I'm familiar with the area. But I'm looking forward to the opportunity, and I'm sure we'll run across each other again.
Did you and Captain Tomzak switch? Is he now in Glenwood?
No, Captain Tomzak, went to the detective division. So he's the captain over major crimes in the detective division. We got rid of him. We're trying to step up our game for y'all now. Captain Tomzak has gone to a different opportunity for him. So him and I are really good friends, so it's a little different for me stepping into his shoes, after we've been through very similar career paths.
Captain, you want to tell them what you told me about the volunteer?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, we did mention that. So you have seen the volunteer vehicles out there. So they are volunteers, just like they say, and all they really do is get out there to be visible, and they'll help us like on some vehicle crashes, where they're stopped or put their yellow lights on just for safety and security, so an officer can get there to take your report. That's one of their main functions. Otherwise, they do some work around the station to help everybody out, but a lot of times they're just out there just to help with some abandoned vehicles, some broken down vehicles, and some vehicle crashes where they'll wait so an officer can get there. So you'll see them out and about as well. And they got nice new cars.
They are nice cars.
How many volunteer vehicles are there?
Vehicles,
Yeah, like how many, I guess, groups would be going out?
just, I think there's just one group that goes out of town. I think there's 2 vehicles, that we have right now. I think that's it. That's all I can remember seeing at the station. Yes, sir.
Captain, thank you for being with us.
Sure.
For your service. Officer Winkle mentioned the video cameras, and I just wanted to share a incident that a good friend of mine's wife was out at celebration of Six Flags in the shopping center about 2 weeks ago. Crossing the long entry driveway in the crosswalk, went both ways, cars were stopped, she saw loud. And one of the cars apparently deliberately accelerated and almost ran her over. She had to jump to escape injury, which she did fortunately. She was very shaken up, and several people witnessed this. Got home, and after a day or so, they decided to inquire a target if they had any cameras, and was told that only the police could access the security cameras. And so they did file a report, which is under investigation, but the lesson I took from this, and maybe you can confirm, is that if you do have an experience of this type, it is important to report it, particularly if there's going to be a chance of finding the person responsible with the video cameras. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. So if you're ever in an incident, the best thing you do is just call the police as soon as you can. And most businesses or areas won't usually let a normal citizen walk in and just review their cameras. We'll need an officer to do that, obviously. And I'm not familiar with where all the cameras are in the district yet, but the city's working on a system called Fusus, which will link a bunch of cameras together of businesses, and we'll participate in it. So we'll be able to get real-time video from any businesses at that time. So if there was an incident, let's say the traffic light camera at Six Forks Celebration Station had a camera that was on one of our systems, we can actually just review it right there. So we wouldn't have to go to businesses, wouldn't have to be anything else. We're getting ready to roll some of those out to see how they work, and hopefully we'll get some businesses to buy in and allow us for easier access.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Good. All right.
All good.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, we are rolling right along tonight. Just checking here. We have 2 special guests again from Park Services, just like we had last month. Except we have Emma Liles in addition to TJ. So I'll just turn the program over to you. Let me get your presentation up here. Oh, the clicker. We never get anything right. Yes. Yeah, we are getting better at this. Well, some of us are getting better at it. You should be good. I'll do my part. Okay. Oh, you're up and running. And why aren't we showing it on the screen? Because I didn't share the screen. Okay.
Yeah, Zoom people all the night.
Yes, we do. All right. Now I think you're good. Aren't we good? We are sharing screen.
I think that's not on the-
Why isn't it on the projector?
That would do it. The wall, the.
Yeah, it's not on the
Are
projector.
you connected to the projector?
Looks like yours not connected to that. For the cord.
Yeah, that would be my guess, Ted. You're not connected.
No, I was.
I think the projector needs to be on the Zoom.
Unplug, replug. It's always a good bet.
Although I don't know why it's no longer projecting, because it's, in the picture, the chairs for you.
Turn it off, turn it on.
Becky, can you see the presentation?
Presentation.
Yeah, okay, so
Yes. this
Yeah,
screen is up.
good.
But it's no
But the
longer
projector-
projecting.
Why isn't the projector? I still think the Zoom.
Can you put the projector into your,
Yeah, well, it's not that,
your machine, I think that's.
yeah, because it's come through your machine, so that machine should be connected to this projector.
No, this has to connect.
Well, the source.
The HDMI.
It should be, yeah, but it's not projecting, so. Whereas it did have a screen up there until. There's back, we have that.
So that's all that was ever on yours. There you
Yeah.
go. That's all that was on yours. We never saw the Zoomers from you.
Here we go. There we go.
I don't know if this clicker is gonna do anything that's going from.
Well, no, but it will for me. You're clicking me. Emma, you probably want to stand over here and just click away. Hey, we don't have any money, we're not getting.
Right, can we scroll back to the first.
Start to
slide?
the first slide, go. And let's give you full, let's set you up here.
If she sits in front of your camera where you're sitting.
She can,
You do that.
you actually can.
I didn't mean to steal your seat. Great,
And if you want to,
Hello there.
computer, just go to the down key.
that makes sense. Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk about Neuse River Park and Kyle Drive Park. We got a quick map to kind of orient you guys to where I'm talking about for these projects. Neuse River Park is in the northeast corner, just below Falls Dam, and Kyle Drive Park is a little bit farther south, still in Council District B, just south of Lewisburg Road, right at the split of Capitol. Both of these projects are part of the 2022 Parks Bond. We have funding for community engagement, master plan development, as well as design and construction. For Neuse River Park, we have 11.5 million, and Kyle Drive, we have 9 million. This is kind of a overall project timeline at the bottom of this screen. We just wrapped up the situation assessment portion and moving into master planning. We have our first public meetings for both these projects next week. I'll get into that more later on. But just want to let you know, we're at the very beginning of this master planning phase. We'll be doing that all next year, and then we will move straight into schematic design, permitting, bidding, and construction. Very exciting. This is a Neuse River Park. We have about 112 acres that we are looking at. Couldn't not include some beautiful pictures as we're talking about this site. You can see the existing boat launch in the top right, as well as the Neuse River in the bottom right. And then as you can see in the other two pictures, the rest of the site is pretty well forested, as well as a couple of creeks. Here's kind of a map showing the whole overall site. We have a few parcels that we're looking at, some city-owned, some leased through the Army Corps of Engineers, and including the river as well in the project scope. For Kyle Drive Park, this is only about a 27-acre site. It has a very large wetland on site, and there's also a couple of creeks and is also forested. Here's a little map for Kyle Drive. You can see in green here is that wetland I was talking about 8 acres of the site are wetland, and it's part of a larger, about 100-acre wetland in the area. This is an overview of our engagement plan for the master planning phase. So right now we're at the very beginning of initial input. This is our listening stage. We've got our listening ears on right now. Then we'll move into design alternatives. We'll bring a few different alternatives to the public and kind of weigh the pros and cons of each. And then we'll narrow that down into a draft concept plan. And then finally moving into the final draft master plan phase. I wanted to note here in these 3 green phases, we'll be using the following engagement methods for every single one. We'll have CAG working meetings. It's our community advisory group that was just appointed by our Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board. And we'll have a couple of public meetings for each one. We'll be doing pop-ups at community events, online surveys. We'll be sending out mailer notifications, and we also piloting a new program called our Community Connectors. We are tapping into our part-time staff resources who are already in the community and helping them help promote our events. So both projects will follow kind of this overall engagement plan phase, but I did want to note that for Neuse River Park, we are doing a couple of additional methods of outreach. While Kyle Drive Park is positioned to be a neighborhood park and serve the local community, we have a great opportunity with Neuse River Park with to kind of do more of a regional destination park, since it's the beginning of the Neuse River Blueway, the beginning of the Neuse River Greenway, and just really exciting. So we'll also be doing all those regular engagement methods, but then also holding focus group meetings, as well as doing some intercept surveying. Here's kind of a timeline of those engagement phases for Neuse River Park and Kyle Drive Park. You can see just kind of going through next year. We'll be wrapping up initial input for both by the end of this year, and then be coming to the public with design alternatives for both, and then seeking Parks Board and Council approval by the end of 2024. So I wanted to promote some of the in-person meetings that we are having for the initial input phase of community engagement. So for Neuse River Park, our first public workshop is next Friday, November 3rd from 4 to 7 at Abbott's Creek Park. We will be having our first community advisory group meeting on November 7th at 6 p.m. at the Wilkerson Nature Preserve. Both are open to the public. And then, of course, also we have our online survey. So you can go to engage.raleighnc.gov/Neuse River Park. And then here is that same info for Kyle Drive. Our public workshop is Monday, October 30th. So 1 week from today, come out to Marsh Creek Park. We'll be there from 4 to 7. Both are drop-in style public workshops. And then our CAG meeting is November 6th at 5 p.m. for Green Road Park. And same deal, online survey, engage.raleighnc.gov/Kyle Drive Park. Any questions?
Got a few.
Sure.
I've got it.
Okay, I can give you your seat back too.
No, you just stay there. How does the budget estimate compare to other city parks like Smoky Hollow? I know that like for the Neuse River Park, it's much more acreage. I'm just curious how much budget is allowed for that and over how many years?
Yeah, so I'm gonna maybe defer to my boss because I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I should have brought the brochure for all of the bond projects. You know how much?
Quick question, just on chat, there was a question saying, who is speaking, what is the purpose of this project? So would you repeat again, what you have the second statement so you can follow up?
Sure. I'm Emma Liles, Capital Project Manager with Raleigh Parks. This is TJ McCourt, Planning Supervisor with Raleigh Parks. And what is the purpose of this project?
Yeah, so we are coming out to let you know about these 2 master plan projects that we're working on. When we do a new park master plan, this is a very collaborative design exercise with the community. So we want to hear from folks who live near these parks, but also people all around the city who might be visiting these parks in the future, so that we can get your ideas, opinions about how these parks should be designed and developed in the future. You know, it's something that we can't just do by ourselves, right? You all are the experts on what this city needs. So this is very much a community first process. So we like to get as much outreach as we can and invite as many people to join the process as we can. And then to the funding question. So Smoky Hollow Park, I don't have the budget numbers right off the top of my head. That was closer to a $20 million project. So the Smoky Hollow Park projects, for those of you who aren't familiar, that's if you're driving into downtown on Capitol Boulevard on the right-hand side, there's kind of that temporary skate park built right now, and then a couple parking lots. Those parking lots are all going to be torn up, and that area is going to be renaturalized. There's a creek that's been culverted underground that we're going to daylight. So it's a big environmental restoration project in addition to a park development. So there's a lot of soil remediation and a lot of other stuff that's frankly just very, very expensive to get done. It's a brownfield site, really. So that's one of the things that led to a higher budget for something like a Smoky Hollow Park. Neuse River Park and Kyle Drive Park, those budget numbers were established by City Council. I guess it would have been last July when we first established what was going to be in that bond referendum package. I will note for Neuse River Park in particular, the original project budget, I think, was closer to 13.5 million. So it's one of the projects in the Parks Bond that's been earmarked for the city to go out and try to find additional funding sources. So that might be through grants, that might be through philanthropic opportunities. But yes, supplementing the funding provided by the bond is the expectation for that one.
That's what I expect. I mean, most of the parks seem to be around $11 million.
Yep.
They project them.
Yep, that's about right. And you know, our goal with this Parks Bond, especially as Emma mentioned with our timeline, is once we get done with this master plan to immediately get started on construction so that we can go ahead and deliver the final product as quickly as we can. In the past, we might do planning and then budget for the future, and it can end up being 5 or 10 years until the park actually gets built. So we're trying to move a lot faster this time around. However, if there are big ticket items that we really want to get in the master plan for a park, that might need to wait for a future phase. And then we would need, you know, to find additional funding at some point in the future.
So the timeline now is to finish community engagement probably this year.
By the end of 2024, we would have the master plans adopted by City Council.
Okay, and then construction would start in 2025.
Immediately after that.
We're looking at construction to start actually in 2026. We have to allot for a year for doing design of the phase 1 and then permitting as well.
Okay.
But hoping to break ground in 2026.
Okay, and the money is allocated from the Parks Bond issue over years.
That's exactly right. Yeah, each year we get a kind of a new chunk of funding each time. Yep.
Sounds great.
Is there another question?
There's some comments in the
Mhm.
chat.
That's
There's several things in chat here.
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions in the chat.
great.
Go for it.
You can read my screen. What happens to turn a piece of land into a park? How much will it disturb the current ecosystems that are already there?
Yeah, great question. So that's one of the things we'll be wrestling with through the master plan process, is trying to strike a nice balance between developing park amenities to make it a usable space that provides recreation opportunities, chance to get outside, enjoy nature, get exercise, meet your neighbors, all the good stuff that parks do. But yeah, balance that with the natural resource impacts. So we have a situation assessment online right now. If you go to that website, engage.raleighNC.gov/Neuse River Park, you'll be able to read all about the environmental inventorying, natural resource and habitat inventorying we've done out on site. So we've got a pretty good idea of where any sensitive habitat species, things like that are located.
We also just completed a bio blitz with Wake Nature to get even more detailed natural resource inventory on site.
Yeah, so we try to make sure that where we do propose new construction, it's not in those high natural resource value areas of the site. It was a farmstead, you know, a few decades in the past, all things considered, not that long ago. So there are certainly areas on the site that, you know, while there are trees, they're not necessarily pristine forest or anything like that. They're really pine trees that have only been there for 10 years, 15 years.
We are not talking about old growth forest here.
Right. So we are,
Unfortunately.
you know, as the Parks Department, as the city, we are very, very sensitive to those concerns, and yeah, only recommend land disturbance and construction in those areas that we feel, are not the highest natural resource areas. Yes, sir.
Somewhat separate question on a different topic. I am a member of the Neuse River Valley Model Railroad Club, and we have a clubhouse with several large layouts on Old Lewisburg Road.
Okay.
Down near Atlantic Avenue. An old cell phone support tower whose lease runs through next year.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking for space to get a substantially larger layout. And there's several towns around the state, such as Albemarle and Hamlet and Selma, that have very nice, museums
Yeah,
that have lands in public property. And we have some interest in, we initially looked or tried to find out if there would be any space available on the Dix campus in those old buildings when they
Sure.
were made available. I contacted the people there who said I should contact the mayor's office, and so I emailed the proposal to the mayor, and who and received a very nice reply from her assistant saying that mayor's out of town and will get up with us
Mhm.
when she got back. And after several more attempts on my part, I've heard nothing further. So I don't know if there's any interest or who to contact or anything. I think it could be something we would be open to the public at a period of time.
Sure.
It would be, we have all ages kids, we have all races, we have even lady railroaders, come in. So it's
Sure.
something that could be a very nice attraction that would, but getting affordable real estate in Raleigh for an activity that type is increasingly difficult
Yeah.
because so much of the former industrial areas being converted into boutiques and Pilates studios and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And the rent goes up. So.
Yep.
Is there anyone that you could suggest in the park department or anybody else that we should contact?
That's a good question. Let me follow up and get your contact information.
I'll do that too.
I think, yeah, that'll be the way to go. So yeah, we'll get that after the meeting.
It may not work, but at least I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah, certainly. And we can put you in touch with the right people for sure.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions in the chat we needed to get to?
There was 2 more parts to.
Great.
A little bit above us, so playgrounds, restrooms.
Will these have mostly trails, or will there be other amenities like playgrounds and restrooms? So I'd say we're at the very beginning of this public input phase, so we haven't made any decisions about what the amenities will be, and really just kind of waiting to hear from the public about what they want. So I think trails, playgrounds, restrooms, all of that's on the table right now.
Mhm.
And then the next question is, over 11,000 acres of woodlands have been destroyed in Wake County in the last little while. How many more acres will Raleigh contribute to be destroyed with these projects?
Right. So again, I think as we said, to the first question, right? It's all a balancing exercise. So we know that city council has determined that these properties owned by the city should be developed into parks for the enjoyment and recreation of the public. And that is exactly what these master plan processes are to help us determine what sort of park that should be. So we have some parks around the city that are designated nature preserves, and they are all about maintaining and conserving the environmental resources that are out there today. And then we have other parks that are highly developed, and they have gymnasiums and basketball courts and all that sort of thing that does require land disturbing activities. And so it's through this public process that we invite everyone to the table to kind of help us hash these issues out and make those tough decisions about what that appropriate balance is. I will say, again, given the guidance that we have in some of our other planning documents and the situation assessment, again, that you're welcome to read online at the project website. For both of these projects, there are significant areas on these properties that will not be disturbed. About half the site at Kyle Drive, as Emma mentioned, is covered by that wetland. That is an area that we certainly will not be disturbing, and we'll be doing everything we can to protect its kind of ecological function. And then same at Neuse River Park. We're going to be very, very sensitive to the buffers along the river, the buffers between the site and the adjacent properties. So when you talk about something that's an 80-acre site, we're looking at probably more along the lines of about 15 of those 80 acres that would actually end up getting disturbed with construction.
I'd say a lot of the Neuse River Park site is in the floodplain for sure.
Mhm.
I'm curious how we balance maintaining the park system that we have with building out additional parks. It feels to me like we keep adding, but then we're struggling with how to.
Right.
Any reaction to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to give
Jane,
some.
you might want to repeat the question for the online folks.
Sure. So the question was, how do we approach the challenge of balancing maintenance of our existing parks and existing facilities with the need to add new parks and new facilities to keep up with demand and the growing population in Raleigh. And I'll go ahead and say it is a challenge, right? And it's Raleigh is not unique in confronting this challenge. Any city of Raleigh size, especially a city like ours, where a lot of our park facilities were built 20, 30, 40 years ago and are reaching the end of their expected useful life at this point. It is a challenge. We are lucky in Raleigh to have a dedicated source of funding now. So I believe it was 2 years ago at this point, we passed a penny for parks. So it's a designated property tax, dedicated property tax that goes to funding deferred maintenance at our park facilities. So that gives us around $8 million a year that goes just to maintaining our existing properties, existing facilities and assets. So when we do something like a parks bond referendum, that is an entirely separate source of funding that's going to go toward that new construction. So we do have, again, dedicated funding streams for both maintaining what we have, reinvesting in those properties, and then parks bond funding for new construction. Go ahead.
I was gonna probably say what you're about to say, which is this parks bond also includes quite a few projects that are part of that continuous reinvestment idea.
That's right. So yeah, Tarboro Road, Method Road, Chavis Park, a lot of the projects that are funded by this parks bond are actually going to be redevelopment of existing park properties.
And Greenways, Walnut Creek Greenway. Too.
Absolutely, about $10 million still going to the Walnut Creek Greenway Trail. So we are, yes, well aware of the deferred maintenance needs across the park system. And between, again, that dedicated property tax and this bond referendum, the city's investing quite a bit in bringing a lot of, especially our oldest and those properties most in need of reinvestment are getting quite a facelift over the next 5 years or so. Yeah.
Durant Road Park.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a dirt road, well, it's gravel road leading in.
The main entrance from the north, yep.
The main, because there's no other entrance around back, but the main entrance off of Durant.
Right.
It's a dirt.
Yeah.
Is there any thoughts on when that could be upgraded to a regular road? I mean,
that's a good,
fantastic park,
right?
You've got a dam, you've got wonderful lake. I mean, there's a lot of people use it, but it's a dirt road.
Yeah,
it's one of the only ones in the city,
right?
That's unpaved.
That's a good question. I'll have to ask, and I'm sure we have a reason or a plan to take care of it in the future, or if we don't have a plan, a reason why not.
Sure.
I thought I saw money in there for
There's a
the
church.
Is that right? Well, for Durant Road Park, I know we're doing one of the lakes there. We're actually converting to a wetland.
In partnership with Raleigh Stormwater.
That's exactly right. Yeah, instead of just being a retention pond, it'll be converted to a wetland. So that might be the funding line item you saw. I'm not aware of any plans to improve that road. There's a variety of reasons. It might be.
Well, the church has most of the property.
So that could very well be the answer, is that we have an access easement across the property, but not actual responsibility for the road itself. I'll have to look into that though, and would be able to get back to you on it.
Just kill the chat.
Build the chest.
Oh, okay.
There's one about.
Okay.
About the ecosystem, I think that's all addressed.
I think that's up at the top of the chat.
It's piece of land.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Your expertise. Take care of the time.
Do our best.
Yes.
Do our best. Any other questions?
Great. Anything else?
Well, thank you all. And like we said, please go ahead, visit the website. You can either go to
Yes.
raleighnc.gov and search for the name of these parks. Or when Larry sends out the agenda with the presentation, the links will be in there as well.
Yeah.
Would love to hear from all of you. Share it with your friends, neighbors, anybody you think would be interested.
Thank
You got one more update, don't you?
One quick update on the Big Branch Greenway project.
Yeah.
It's almost a no update, but we are in the process of negotiating a scope and contract for the consultants on that project. Want to let you all know that's going to be managed by our roadway design and construction team in the Raleigh Engineering Services Department. The Parks Department is still going to be managing community engagement for the project though. So you will have myself or Emma or a member of our Greenways team here to work with you all throughout the actual public engagement phase. We expect to take that contract for that project to City Council in January. So that would be the official start of the project once we get that contract approved.
TJ, along that same line, the Interceptor Sewer Project is gonna be going under and through a bunch of the major roads. Are they gonna coordinate those two projects so that they're not making multiple holes?
Right, unfortunately, they are on different timelines, so the sewer interceptor project is gonna be under construction while we are still doing the kind of feasibility and design work. We are working with Raleigh Water though, so that as they are doing that work and impacting those properties, we're gonna be having conversations with those property owners at that time. If there's going to be a recommendation for the Greenway trail to follow along that same sewer line. I'll say the reason that engineering services, that roadway design and construction group is going to be the formal project managers, is because we do expect a lot of that big branch project, a lot of the Greenway trail is actually going to be along street rights of way. There's a lot of challenges with building kind of within that stream corridor. So it's going to be a little bit of a hybrid project.
Terrific.
Great. All right, well, thank you all again.
Well, thank you both very much. And Emma, I know I've invited you many times. I'm glad to see you finally here.
I'm finally, we're kicking off the master plan phase.
There you go.
It's been too long with no updates, but now we have updates. Exciting stuff.
Thank you both very much. And yes, okay. All right. All right, I'm back. I know we have Christina here, and the next thing on our agenda is nice to have Councilor here actually in present, Councilor Jones. It's a pleasure after many, many, many years. So I'll give you two choices. You guys can present and update us now, or you can wait till I throw out the Six Forks Road project. Which your choice?
Why don't we do the 6 months?
I knew you'd say that. All right. I told you there'd be something off agenda, I think, when I sent out the note. So I'd like to have a discussion as best we can about the Six Forks Road project. If I'm guessing right, I would think people living in Midtown that have been waiting for over 10 years for this project to mature are pretty upset that they're now offering other options. But that's what we're here for tonight. So I'm going to share screen again. And first, throw this out. Why is that doing that? Okay. This is the current planned scope of the Six Forks Road project. Now, you will notice if you have not gone to the website for the project, it was just updated today with several other options. Means to reduce the cost of the project while maintaining, I hope, the objective that was originally set for it. You'll notice here that it's a total of 125 feet. Don't know how to get 125 feet. I can't add it up. I think it includes the utility rights of way on the back sides, but if you add up the laneage and the amount for the bike path and the sidewalk, it doesn't, it's short of that. So I'm assuming that some of that is utility right away in the back. But my point is that there is a report out. It's still on. If you go to the city website and you go to the project page, you do that by just, when you go to the city website, just click on projects. For the subject, just type in Six Forks and you'll go to the original project page. And the reason I say that is because that may disappear very shortly. But if you go to the very bottom of it, you will find the actual project report that was approved by council in 2018. It's got all of the detail, all of the summation of the community engagement, all the summation of cost, and all the summation of traffic conditions on the road. And you will observe that back when they published the report in 2018, that the intersection at Millbrook and Six Forks, the intersection at Dartmouth and Six Forks were rated E's and F's. Now that was 5 years ago. We have added quite a bit more development over the last five. Level of service, F is as worse as you can get. It's like failing in school. E is a little bit better. So if you get stuck in traffic and you're expecting some service to help you out, tough luck. But that's really what it means. It means that your risk is high of having an accident. And also the statistics for accidents are also in that report. It's a very complete report. Unfortunately, it's 130 pages, I think. If you cannot find it, for all of you listening, I will send it out as a mailer just to make sure everybody's aware. But what I was also going to tell you all is that Mary Black at the town hall this week. Is Mary online? Do we know if Mary's online? Well, anyway, Mary's going to have a town hall this week. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wednesday, 6 o'clock, Sertoma Park.
Yes.
And one of the things on the agenda will be the Six Forks Road project. I encourage you all to attend, those listening and those here, to make your voices heard, as if they haven't been heard over the last 12 years. But I suggest you make your voices heard again. We have some new council members that don't have the history, even though they've lived here. And I think it's good for them to hear what's going on again. So let me, before I do, let me put up the options so everybody knows what's going on. These are the options that were offered at the last council meeting. There are some options that should have been included here, like, for example, maybe a multi-modal path instead of separate bike and pedestrian lanes. That would save a little bit, because the cost here is not so much in the road project itself, it's the acquisition of the right of way. And that's what's really just out of sight. It's not that I kind of fault the city for it. They waited so long. They waited for prices to go up on land. We could have done this maybe a couple of years ago. But the point is that that's the expensive part. So I think the objective here really is to look at the project and think of things they can do to perhaps reduce the cost, to reduce the cost of the right-of-way acquisition. One of those things is, instead of having an 18-foot median, they could perhaps have an 8-foot median, which was also one of the proposals in the report that was issued in 2018. So I'd like them to look at the report and perhaps make better recommendations. But in the interim, these are your choices. One is to cancel the project completely. Don't think that'll go over very well. The second option is 6 lanes with separated facilities, but only Rowan to Millbrook. I'm fine with that, because that's the stretch that is the problem. If you look at the lane widths, it's very similar to the same problem we have on Wake Forest Road, where they can be as narrow as 8 foot and as much as maybe 10 foot. It's not the generous lanes that you see from Millbrook to Lynn Road. So that's where the problem is. And of course, around the shopping area, they are wider lanes with more lanes. So the area from Rowan to Millbrook should be the focus, and hopefully that's the area that needs to be fixed. And there is no way, I should say this right up front, there is no way for the city to correct that without widening the road. So this option of not doing any road widening is really off the table. But we need to tell them that. Taking Rowan to North Glen and only doing that part is kind of like a wasted exercise to me. And that's my feeling anyway. The other option is to only do the separated facilities, the bike path and pedestrian. I think that kind of defeats the purpose of the project. And then the last is a multi-use path, Rowan to Lynn, but you don't see a multi-use path in combination with 6 lanes. I don't know what happened to that particular option. Somebody just didn't think about it. So that's what's on the table. That's what will be discussed. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Do I have any comments from the people online or the people in the audience?
You mentioned an 8-foot median.
you know, right now they're an 18-foot median, you come to the intersection, a turn lane comes out of that, and you still got plenty of room there. I was wondering how they're handling that with 8-foot, unless they have to widen it farther out to the right side of the intersection and get the width.
Yeah, well, Lou was asking, that's actually why they said they need 18 feet, is so to accommodate the turn lanes. But that whole stretch only has one turn lane, doesn't have a double turn lane anywhere. So I don't quite understand. I think that's a question that needs to be answered. Lubin asked about how you can do it with an 8-foot median, and that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think it's like every place else in the city that just has a single turn lane everywhere else. Christina.
I do wanna, also, uplift another opportunity. We did send this to Transportation Committee as well, which will be Thursday, so you'll have.
Thursday at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, you'll have an opportunity on Wednesday night at the town hall. There will be a second opportunity Thursday at 3 o'clock, trying to get as much public feedback as we can, according to these options. So please make sure, if you can't make Wednesday, come Thursday.
Yeah, let me reiterate that from Councilor Jones. There is also the Transit and Transportation Committee that with a little bit of doing, they finally put on the agenda for that meeting, and that will be at 3 o'clock on Thursday in the normal council meeting room, okay, downtown. I don't, is that going to be broadcast?
The committee meetings usually are, so don't quote me on, but I'm pretty sure anything in.
Okay. Okay, I wouldn't count on it being broadcast, but let's hope it's gonna be broadcast. Ted?
I can't resist making a comment. You know, I've heard, you describe this road, on television as being a racetrack. And the best way to help cars moving faster is to make wider lanes. I think any traffic engineer will tell you that. But my experience of it has been gridlock. And the cause for the gridlock is not in this section. It is at North Hills, it is south of Rowan and north of Millbrook. And they're proposing to spend, which is, well, you know, over $100 million, which is 5 times the cost of these two parts. On doing this, which will destroy the environment along it and do absolutely nothing to improve the congestion if they don't address North Hills. If they address North Hills, getting better turn recommend situations, you might not even need all this for the congestion.
Yes.
And I think this entire project, to me, reeks, I mean, they're very nice people, the planners are, but they really have no idea what they're doing. I think they're absolutely incompetent, and I get angry every time I get out and drive on our streets when I see what they're doing. And I can go for a long time, but I'll stop, I've said enough.
Yep.
Well, I would add, I don't think this investment is solving the problem, and I think the point is exactly right. The on-ramps and the off-ramps around 440 are where a lot of the core congestion exists. And without remediating that, you're not doing it. You're spending a lot of money and you're not really solving the core problem.
Yes. For those of you who didn't hear that, Holly asked about improving the area around 440, the exchanges themselves. And that was phase 2 of the same project, but it's been dropped many times. And I've got to point out also that there is a potential 20-story building being proposed right against the belt line just south of 440, where the Computer Drive. And that was the #1 question is, if you're going to put a 20-story building in here and more congestion within Computer Drive, how are these people going to get out onto the road? So it's not like people aren't addressing it already. And that's a major problem if and when that rezoning comes about. So, David.
Yeah, so I know this is going on. I apologize for only following 6 of the last 12 years. I just don't understand why this can't be broken into 2 chunks. If we know we're going to need most of this land, the property owners along 6 Forks should probably be, you know, they're the ones that are probably hurting the most. I don't understand why we can't buy the majority, 90%, 100% of the anticipated land. And I know everybody here in this group especially loves community engagement, but you could buy the land, buy the rights of way that you need, and then hash out the rest, right? And then if you give some back or don't need it, or you just have some extra land 6 feet, 8 feet on each side, whatever. I don't understand why the city isn't capable of just moving forward with a lower cost while it's still lower than it, not as low as it was, but lower going forward. Buy what you need now and then have the next 4 years of discussion or whatever it's going to be. It seems like if we had just decided, hey, we're going to talk this to death, buy the land, and then have the discussion. Buy the land, the most land you think you're going to need along Six Forks for the longest stretch, and spend that money. Had you done that 4, 5, 6 years ago, you wouldn't be in this situation. You could then talk it to death. Wouldn't matter. At least you wouldn't, impose on those property owners along the way. And then you'd have the most flexibility for any plan. And then the only last point I'll make is gridlock in this area is good. It's becoming very urban. You probably don't, for much of this stretch, want most cars getting up over 30, 35 miles an hour. You need it to be slow. You need it to be congested because people are going to try crossing the road at all kinds of odd places. But that last part's just an opinion. I really don't understand why we just didn't buy the land years ago.
Good question. That's what the city is having the problem with currently. And just so you know, the city has been negotiating the right of way with the people along Six Forks for as long back as I can't remember when they even started. But that's the problem. All these property owners are in limbo until a decision is made by the city. So yes, David, I agree with you in all aspects.
Larry, the people on Zoom are having difficulty hearing the audience questions, so we could try having you me unmute, and maybe that will pick up here, or else have people come up.
Oh, I think the question they may have missed from the audience might have been Holly's.
The question is, it's an observation of problem there, it's the 440 intersection, I believe it's a state DOT problem, not a city problem. And then if you widen the window in the intersection,
New Year's is new.
Still yours. Okay, I will repeat the question as best I can. Holly, you want to just come up for a second? It'll be easier. Yeah, it's a good observation. And it's going to come to bear within the next 6 months.
The observation is that all of the work north of the 440 intersection will have no effect on improving the congestion unless the 440 on ramps and off ramps are addressed. My understanding is those are in the DOT, NCDOT arena, and that they've articulated a number of times there's not much they can do to improve those on ramps and off ramps. So we're going to spend a lot of money and not solve the core congestion problem. That's my understanding of the current constraints.
I think that's correct. Okay, was there anything else that perhaps people didn't hear needs repeating? Okay. Well,
okay, but if my observation was I traveled north on 6 Forks, so I.
So speak up there, so if you don't mind.
I travel north on 6 Forks, so I a couple of days a week, sometimes it's 7 and then up to 9 o'clock, and I see that most of that congestion is southbound. Is there, of course, if the choking point is the access to 440, my observation is not going to be very offer any kind of a solution, but is there a way to designate more lanes going south on the 6 Forks during the traffic periods and then reverse it in the evening the same way? That's done on the big cities. I'm not sure what it would involve and how it would be implemented, but that's something to consider as well, provided that there is not a choking point somewhere further south, along the road.
good point. And like I said, it's something everybody that drives the road is aware of. And as I said, the project on Computer Drive is going to accentuate the problem. With that, if no more comments, I'm gonna, Emma.
Yeah, I just went on the RaleighNC.gov website and confirmed that the Thursday Transportation Committee will be streamed live.
Excellent, thank you very much.
I think to Councilmember Jones' point that anything in the committee chambers is streamed live.
Okay. And for the audience, we've now verified that the Transit and Transportation Committee meeting at 3 o'clock will be online. All right. Let me kill this. Stop sharing. All right, we are back. All right. All right, next agenda item. It is my pleasure to introduce Councilor Jones.
You want me to sit where you are so they can see anything?
Sure.
Share, so you can share.
Yeah. You can have a nice warm seat.
Hey, hey guys, I am Christina Jones. I am counselor for District E, which touches Midtown on the other side of 440. So the computer drive, that area is me. And then I go from 5 Points on Glenwood all the way up to Durham. So I go from Wade Avenue and then all the way to Creedmoor. So that's my district. Just wanting to reemphasize on the Six Forks project, that is something that we are still all learning, the new counselors and we are still learning about. So it was really informative this last meeting. It was really important for us to push it to committee so that we can have further discussion on it, really learning what happened in the past. I know the questions that I brought up were like, how do we make the promise that we're going to stick to the plan and the budget, because we've promised the community 42 million, 46 million, I forget the number. And now it's ballooned up to 120 million because of many things that happened. But I don't want to, one of the potential options was to talk about another bond. And I said, I would not sign on for another bond if we can't even do this one. So that's a definitely point of conversation that we're going to have on Thursday. So I really hope that either you join us in person or send us your thoughts or watch us online. Council updates. I'm not sure if there's lots, there's lots of stuff that happened. So I'd love to answer any questions that you guys have on council updates. I'm not sure which way to go. If we don't have questions, I can definitely wing it for sure, but I want to make sure to capture your thoughts. So does anyone have a question? I see the chat. Nope, no questions. All right, then go for it.
Same one I ask you all the time. What's the latest on the clerk position?
Oh, the clerk position. So right now we're at a stalemate. We're at this 4-4 split. There's 4 counselors who would like the clerk to remain independent and 4 who are interested in moving it under the city manager. We in March had the city clerk and the city attorney discussion, and we decided to move with the city attorney first and then come to the city clerk. So that's where we are now. We're waiting this next meeting. We'll be getting information back from city manager or assistant city manager Tansy Hayward, and she'll be giving us some thoughts as to what could happen and could be. I vehemently would like to keep it under the council, so leaving it independent. I really think that it's important that we have those branches, especially if we are tasked as council to hire 3 positions, that being city clerk, city attorney, city manager. I'd like to keep that. I'm not ready to just give stuff up that's located in our charter. But at this moment we are at a stalemate. So we're at a 4-4 split on that. Any other questions?
What 4-4 means that the city clerk right now should be reporting to council, except for the vote that you took to send it to the city manager.
It does currently live in that interim position, and the interim person that we put was the city manager. There's possible conversations of moving that, and those are where we are discussing as a council, and nothing has come to where it's a majority. But when that comes back up on November 7th, when we come back, we'll hopefully get more clarity at that point.
Thank you.
All right. Any other big Christmas parade? Anyone? Yeah. Want to talk about Christmas parade?
Plane coming back like it was?
I don't think so. We were given a lot of really safety concerns. I was frustrated by the confusion of it all when it came out. That along with the security guards in downtown are things that many of us on council didn't know. So it went out to the public and that looked like it was a council decision. It was not. And I was a little bit frustrated with that. So we had many meetings discussing, did talk to the city attorney, went over the reasons, and we talked about the scale, because a lot of the emails that we're getting are, well, how come we allowed Broughton? How come we allowed the Veterans Day Parade and the St. Patrick's Day Parade? And I hear you, because I was like, that doesn't seem fair. It takes one car, it takes one thing. So it doesn't matter the scale. But from the city attorney's perspective, because of that scale, because the Christmas parade was 65,000 people and the other ones are not nearly, they don't go in as long. It's not, the Christmas parade is 1.5 miles rather than like a quarter of a mile. Those things were played into the reasons. Now I do, and I have made this clear to them, I would like debriefings when stuff like this happens. I know that Broughton just had their parade and they had like 8 students in the back of a pickup truck, and that was pictured, and I was like, guys, this doesn't seem safe. So they did reach out to Broughton and they did talk about how that will not be permitted next time. So I'm really hoping that as we move forward, if things like this happen again, we can do a debriefing right afterwards so that we can be on the same page, because it didn't feel like we were on the same page with Shop Local Raleigh and that was the vendor or the people who are in charge of the parade. They are under a lawsuit, not the city. The city is not being sued, but the Shop Local Raleigh is in the middle of a lawsuit. So that played into part of the decision as well as to why to not permit it for this year. It's not like it'll never be that way, but I think the city decided, hey, we need to take a break for a second. And in our respect, not because the family asked for it. And I think that was a really flub on our part to say that onto the news and make it like they asked us to do this, because they did not. But I think for our own purposes, we said, we just need a break for a minute, just to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row to ensure the safety of participants and residents in the future. So I don't foresee it coming back this year, but I hope that with more protocol and understanding of safety measures moving forward, that next year we can be back at it. But for this year, I don't see it coming back. Let me pick my brain for other things. Yes, go ahead.
Come over here, so
Come on over.
I think you can be heard.
Right, okay. I'm Ted Kensling, and I just turned 80 years old 2 days ago, so you can wish me happy birthday. I'm speaking on behalf of senior citizens, and who are the most rapidly growing demographic in the city, I understand, even though we're attracting a lot of young people. And I hope that you will be mindful of accessibility needs for senior citizens. And my concern stands, I've been on the board of the North Carolina Symphony for several decades and really enjoy going to many of the events at the Martin Marietta Center. And it is really getting to be a bear to get down there, because there's such a conglomeration mix of pedestrians and cars, and now they have no right turns, and the intersections there, particularly at Salisbury and South Street, when it's letting out is chaos. And buses aren't going to solve that problem, and bikes and scooters aren't going to solve that problem, and it's going to be that way for the foreseeable future. But then they put all this in, suppose the no right turns for safety, and then they expand the social district. So you now have more people walking around outdoors, drinking with their beverages, which seems to me kind of a contradiction to the safety concerns downtown. But that's just one incident, but it is important, I think, that we continue to enable our older citizens to be able to access downtown and not be endangered by scooters and all these other crazy things that are happening down there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the input. We did just discuss the social district and the expansion of it, and there are concerns. There are definite concerns, and that's not just for accessibility issues. That's true. Another one, even talking to our in-house community, is the difference of who can drink and who can't, who gets arrested for it across the street, and who's allowed to just drink freely. So
that concealed carry, of course.
and you combine that, what was said is that, and you combine that with concealed carry. So there are a lot of concerns that I have going into that. I mean, that is not something that I was fully aware of. You know, I'm not one that travels downtown. And so learning about the social district is still on the top of my priority list. And I'm listening to those concerns as well as the fairness of who can drink out there. And I have a lot of questions too. So thank you for uplifting that. I'll make sure that as we continue those discussions that those are brought up because those are great points. Thank you. Any other questions for council? Oh, thank you. You should come up here and read them. Thank okay, what does this mean? We are not allowed to okay.
Protest march in Raleigh if it's viewed as dangerous.
Does this mean we not allow a protest march in Raleigh? I'm not sure I understand. Whitney Hill, can you come off mute and help me understand your question better?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my grammar is bad on that. What I meant to say is, and this not just protest march but you know, are we gonna narrow things down so much that we're not gonna be able to, you know, do anything with a march? I mean, we've had protest marches that have turned into riots. Does that mean that we won't allow, because of the danger aspect, we're not going to allow a protest march? But you know, are we going to just tighten things up to, you know, I mean, canceling Christmas parade's a pretty heavy duty thing, I think. If we can't do a Christmas parade, well, what else can we not do?
Okay, so I think I hear what you're saying in that in relation to the Christmas parade, you're asking, does this mean that we won't allow because people that has been dangerous too. The Christmas parade, as I think Becky also alluded to, was the motorized vehicles. And in protests, those don't have anything to do with motorized vehicles. So I think they're two different things. I hear the concern. But for the Christmas parade specifically, it was for the vehicle. So the parade is still on. It's not allowing motorized vehicles for it due to the fact that we don't have the capacity to check every single car at the moment due to our lack of staffing in police and fire. So we did note later, you know, we spoke to Shop Local Raleigh and they were willing to hire someone. But I think for this one, we hadn't vetted everything. So I'm not sure why that wasn't enough for the city. Again, this is a staff decision. This is not a council decision. So we put people in place to make these decisions. And I want to support those because I think that they have the best for the Raleigh residents, the best aspect in mind for them. And I think that we're all working together to figure out how we can make sure we're communicating that different or better next time. But in terms of how that relates to a protest march, they're two different things. So I'm not sure how to answer that question for you. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, dangerous is dangerous. And when you have something like the Christmas parade getting canceled simply because someone over in the bureaucracy is making a decision to do that, and there's not really anyone to hold accountable, what else can be canceled? That's all.
I hear you. I mean, the protests are First Amendment rights. So those are different, again, from a parade. And just to clarify, once again, the parade was not canceled. The parade can still happen. It just cannot have motorized vehicles. So there still is a Christmas parade. Currently, they have a horse-drawn carriage for Santa and Mrs. Claus. So I do hear your concerns. I'm not saying that I necessarily disagree, but because I was not part of these conversations, none of council really was that I know of, maybe some were. But because I wasn't part of that walking into this is not something that I'm ready to just go against staff for, because I think, again, that they made the best decision in the moment, that they saw fit with all the information that they had in front of them. So we will work to doing better next time, but this year's parade, which will happen, just will not have motorized vehicles.
Thank you.
Steve, yes, go ahead.
Hey, how are you? Councilor, I just want to step up for you a little bit here, because as you and other councilors have indicated, this is a city decision. And in my career, I spent a lot of time doing sponsorships, special events and things like that. One of the issues and the underlying issue here that I understand the special events group had to deal with is the fact that the group that operates the parade, which is not the city, is currently facing a lawsuit for negligence for last year's parade. That would certainly enter into any decision you make going forward. And I can understand that. And yeah, I feel bad for them because I know they got a lot of pushback and you guys got a lot of pushback. But again, as multiple people have said, this is a city decision. It's a staff decision. And you understand that when staff makes a decision, they also work with council, council meaning legal counsel. So, you know, they were in a tough spot, and I sort of feel for them. And I think, as you indicated, and other conversations I've had, this became a communications issue, which is really unfortunate. But if I were in a similar situation in a corporate type thing where I'm looking at sponsorship and I've got a legal issue sitting in front of me, you're probably going to have to make a tough call.
And I'd like to clarify something, or just show you my opinion. Maybe not clarify is the wrong word, just my opinion on it. As council, my first job is to residents. I am your champion. I am your voice to help amplify your concerns. And I said, but as soon as I got the job, I also realized that I'm also staff's, and staff does so many amazing things, and they have to make decisions on things that I don't know a lot about. And that's whether I've been here for 2 years or 20 years. There's just, we don't have the same level of touch points as staff does. So being on council, it's this balancing act between, yes, I know we'll use the Christmas parade. I know residents want the Christmas parade, but I'm listening to my experts on the staff side, and they're saying no. And I have to make that balance and say, okay, I can't just go against them because they've done the homework that I have not done yet. And so now I know that I will make sure that I will do the homework for next year so that I can be part of that conversation. But in this initial one, you know, I want you guys to rest assured, we have an amazing staff in all departments that only want the best for you guys. And so I want the best. I know they want the best. And sometimes that's not, it's not a fun conversation, but I'm ready, you know, to help clarify anything that I can while sitting here. So I hope that gives some clarity to my position, but always want to amplify the good work that staff does. Awesome. Any other questions for me on council? Shane. Oh, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Update on the security guard issue.
Ooh, great question. She asked for an update on the security guard issue. This, along with the Christmas parade, it came out like the week before the Christmas parade that we were contemplating hiring private security for our downtown corridors. Again, nothing that I had heard of before this moment. I was like, oh my God, what are we talking about? And then we said, okay, we're going to put that to committee. So tomorrow we have our Safe, Vibrant, Healthy Community Committee, in which we talked about it last month, and we're still continuing that discussion this month. In the middle of that, I did realize, and was watching the Raleigh Transit Authority meeting, that decision is never going to be made by council. That was being made by Go Triangle. And I don't want to say their decision was RTA, but they discussed it. So Go Triangle met last Thursday, and they did approve the funding for armed security guards. So when you guys see that, I need you all to know that that was nothing that was ever going to come to us. And I don't understand why. So at that transit tomorrow, the Safe, Vibrant, Healthy, I know that those are questions on my plate that I have, because it is called the TPAC. And I don't understand the explanation the brief explanation I was given was that when these Go Triangle and RTA were set aside, it's an authority so that it has its own rules and they can make big decisions like that. And that's under their purview, which is why it's not coming out of city funding. It's coming out of Go Triangle and the Wake Transit Plan. It's nothing that we ever had a say in, but I didn't realize that walking into these committee meetings. So a big point that I'm going to bring up tomorrow is I just don't understand what were we ever going to do in this committee in relation to this if we were never ever going to make a decision. If we were not part of saying yay or nay to this private security, then I think it gives this illusion that we are, since we're talking about it in committee. And honestly, tomorrow, there's not going to be any other decision made. That decision has already been made. And I'm as confused about it. And I hope to gain some more clarity tomorrow, because
I had no idea how this process worked. But as soon as I know, you'll know. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
So if that is the case, then
Mhm.
so if that is the case, if it is a separate, what did you call it?
Authority.
Authority.
Yeah.
How are they accountable to the public and how are they accountable for communicating those kinds of changes that they want to make or that they're planning to make? Because it sounds like they are just autonomous is what I'm getting the impression from how you've described it.
Again, I found this out last week when they were voting on it and I was
Okay.
like, what?
Yeah.
What is going on? So it's questions that I hope in the meeting tomorrow to clarify. So definitely I will uplift that so I can get a better answer than I have for you tonight. The public should definitely understand because what it's gonna look like. And I know I went to the budget listening sessions and I went to District E's last week and a reporter was asking the budget department where this money came from. And I had to step in and be like, whoa, that's not us. That's not us. That is actually Wake Transit. And this is, and so she was very like, oh, really? And I told her to watch the meeting and to watch last week's council meeting because I did ask Corey Branch, who is the liaison for Raleigh Transit Authority, to help explain that. So he had some explanations. I don't know that I completely understood it after that. So hopefully tomorrow we'll have staff there and everything who can clarify that and how the public can hold these groups accountable because I don't have that answer for you at the moment. So I apologize.
As a follow-up.
Yeah.
To that.
Yeah.
How, okay, since safety is autonomous, it's autonomous group. So armed guards are gonna be patrolling autonomously with no authority to tell them what to do. What are our RPD? How, so RPD is working on Glenwood South.
Separate problem. Two separate issues.
So it's not the same as Glenwood South.
No.
So we're gonna have armed guards
At the transit center.
at the
At
transit
bus
center.
Yeah.
Well, what's to keep the armed guards from coming over to Glenwood South?
Well, they have a specific area. So you've got the armed guards will only be at the transit center on Wilmington.
And possibly on the buses themselves.
And possibly on the buses, right? That I will get clarity for that tomorrow as well, but they will not be near Glenwood South. They will strictly be at the transit center and then DRA, which is Downtown Raleigh Alliance. They are the MSD in that area. They will be handling security that is not armed on Wilmington Street. So it's two different. They're spending about $200,000 on security for Wilmington Street. And then Go Triangle will be spending, I don't know how much, I want to say it's comparable to that, about $200,000 to on the bus system and in the transit center.
Okay.
So that's specifically for that area. That has nothing to do with Glenwood South.
Okay, I just thought that would be a.
No, for
that would be a
sure.
conflict. I mean, that's putting a lot on the police who are already having to.
Now, I will say that in our first conversation last, Safe, Vibrant, Healthy Community meeting, that's such a mouthful to say, but, that the police department meeting Chief Patterson, like I specifically asked her and I said, hey, can you come up? How does this, are you excited about this? Or is this something that you wanted? And she said, yes, because of the staff resources that they don't have in staff. And so that connection to, okay, well, how will they be trained? Is our PD going to help? I don't know those answers yet because we're going to ask those tomorrow. And now I'm like, okay, it's a done deal. So I do know that the police is in full support of the armed security guards, but answering the questions as to who is in charge of what, I'm not sure yet, but it's great questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. One thing that I know I don't have a ton of time, but it's that I really want to emphasize, and I'm starting to in my own community meetings. One shameless plug, I do community meetings every month. Last month it was at Crafty. This month I'm still looking for a place, but it'll be November 8th. It's the second Wednesday of every month. We spend 2 hours just talking like this, answering questions and just going back and forth. It's a great time. Lubin's always there. He has a great time. So y'all should come. But secondly, I really want to talk about staff vacancies. I want to talk about the fact that we as a city last year were running about 14% vacancy rate, which meant that we were missing about 600 full-time employees. So when we talk about, I don't know, potholes in the road, if you're talking about, and that doesn't even include police and fire. These are things that I want to give you guys everything. I want to make sure that you have everything. But if I don't have staff to do the work, then that's where things get cut. And that's where you don't see those same services. If we're talking about traffic calming over here or whatnot, it takes our sidewalk program, which I'm sure everybody's everybody's familiar with, that's been stopped because we don't have the staff, we don't have the funding to do all of that. We need to put priority into our staff. So that's one. The police and fire, they are at a crazy vacancy. You know, on paper, it'll say that we have 810 officers and that we're trying to budget to 900. So it looks like we're missing 90 people. And while that is a lot, if you put in perspective how much we've grown since we set those totals, we should really be at 1,200 officers. So we're really like almost 400 officers short. And the same with fire, and that's around 200. So when you hear police come, or if you have fire and they're saying we're understaffed, and that's also crosses over into emergency communication. So that's 911 operators. Your safety is my biggest concern. That's always going to be my biggest concern. And right now, we're at a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to make sure that we're putting investments and we're putting our money to ensure your safety continues. And so I think ultimately that was the hope of the armed security guards. And sometimes we may not do it exactly how residents think that it should be done. But we're trying with what we have. And as we go into the next budget, I want you to know that those priorities are going to stick with, we need more staff. I need more staff on all levels, but really, really, really importantly, I need a more public safety staff so that you guys don't have to experience the break-ins that they talk about every month. As we talk about Glenwood South, and I meant to ask it while I was here, but I didn't. When they pull officers for Glenwood South to make sure that that's safe, they're pulling officers from your district. They're pulling officers from my district. And so now that I'm up in Briar Creek, that also allows for the car break-ins. My husband's car got broken into. He didn't lock his door. Please lock your doors. But his chef knives, he's a gourmet chef, and his whole knife set got stolen. And so that was horrible, his fault, but still horrible. And I think that moments like this, where we're saying, when we're doing this weird seesaw and sending officers over here to, of course, try and keep Glenwood South safe, because it's a really big concern. We also have to acknowledge that seesaw then allows other things to happen around the city. So it's not just one area of town. We really have to do a holistic view of it. So my biggest push for this, as I'm summing up, I promise I'm almost done, is that in this next budget, as we're looking, please go to your budget listening sessions, number one. That each district has already had one, but there's going to be 9 virtual budget sessions where we can talk about our priorities. And my priority is going to be on staff. Staff needs support. They need more people to do the things that we want them to do and that we would like to see in our communities. So please understand that that's where at least my focus will be as we move forward over the next few months. Cool. Any other questions? Hang on a second. Private security. Oh, and he answered. Thank you so much, David, for answering that for me. Ted.
Question of the status of the Atlantic Avenue project, which has been abandoned by the contractor.
Yes. Oh my gracious. So the Atlantic Avenue, I walked into this one. This one was a fun closed session meeting. That one, I didn't realize you guys were experiencing that. My gracious, that took a long time. That vendor just stopped showing up for work. They were like, meh, I don't want to do this anymore. And we were like, what's going on? And so the city had to go through these processes where they had to contact them. Are you coming back? And then they had to go through, okay, well, now we have to give you a notice and all these steps, and now turn that and sue them for not doing it. And so they finally got all that out of the way. But at the moment, we don't have a replacement contractor, and there's no contractor in there. So the Atlantic Avenue is still exactly where it was. And I do not have an answer as to what that is, because we're now having to rebid the project. So now we have to send an RFP out and get more bids to come back in to then say, who's going to do this? Who's going to make this? So I'm sorry. It is annoying. And that one was not the city's fault this time. That was not our fault.
Once, just so everybody is aware. The relationship between city and the contractors is not a good one. We had the same problem even with Hardemont, and the contractor had to be begged to come back to finish it up. And we had a similar problem. We're still having an open contract negotiation with Eastgate Park Stand. We don't know the status of that. That's been 6 months. It's an ongoing problem of Somebody needs to just be an overwatch
Yeah.
on contract, period.
And I think that it's something that I try and uplift during, because all that stuff happens in consent. So consent agenda, we approve all of these things and we do it in one vote. So you guys don't really see it. You can look at it on the agenda and you can read everything we're doing. But when you see it in council, it'll be one vote unless something gets pulled. So there's a lot of times where I like to pull stuff just to amplify and say, hey, we're looking for people, usually in the water treatment or, repair side, like, oh my gosh, because you'll see like it's one RFP that goes out or we only get one response. And I'm like, oh my God, if people knew what we were looking for, if high school students and college students who were like, what am I going to do with my life? If they knew what we were looking for and how much money the city is paying for that, maybe this would encourage them to do, to study that and to become part of that job force. And Mama Kai, I see you. Mama Kai, you had a question. Go ahead.
I do. It's another amazing day in paradise, everyone. Please, thank you for allowing me to jump in here. This is not my my thing. I'm concerned about why something isn't done to actually help people. The things that are happening in downtown on Glenwood, it is all based on trauma. And when you are sending armed forces out to handle trauma by adding to trauma, it creates an escalated drama. And this is just reminding me of days past where it has never worked to implement law enforcement in places that are going to be more harm that are going to bring more harm than good. So what is being done to implement the HEARTS program that has been suggested that they have up and running in Durham on, I think it's been running really well. I know Acorns does some things, but even that's not good. I've decided y'all aren't doing anything, and I use that collectively about addressing homelessness. I sit on the homelessness task force. They've admitted they're not looking to end homelessness, even though that's an objective of our presidential administration, which just floors me. But our city and our county aren't interested in doing it. So tell me, what is going on with HEARTS so that people can actually get the help they need? So that their trauma response isn't to go out and hurt other people, because in their youth, they've been hurt and they don't know what to do otherwise because they're bored, because they have no sense of themselves, because they have no family, because they are just doing the very best they can with the information they have and the circumstances they're living under. And nobody is providing them with opportunities to know better so that they can do better.
Sure. So our program, which is Acorns, the difference, if you're unfamiliar, between HEARTS, which is the Durham program, is that Durham's has social workers exclusively. So the call will come into 911. They'll ask a series of questions. If it's anything that's mental health related, that goes to the HEARTS branch. It's only in about a third of the city. They actually today are starting to expand that. Because they're having such a great success rate with it. They don't have they had so far within the last year, they haven't had any issues with it. So it's a really fantastic program. When we first joined council, it was something that we, as the new councilors, asked, can we look at? Because Acorns has a police involved. So it's social workers, but there's also officers involved. And that was a point of contention, because really, if you're in a trauma situation and you see police, to Mama Kai's point, it's terrifying. And it goes from I need help to you already feel like you're being challenged. I don't know the right word, but you feel those people are being victimized or feel like they're being victimized by having police coming out. So we are getting an update on that on November 7th. We were told it was going to be October 17th, and then it wasn't on the agenda. So I did bring that up in council concerns on the 17th, saying, I don't understand why we were told the 17th and now it's going to the 7th. And what the city manager let me know is that they weren't ready. They hadn't finished. So I said, okay, are we going to be ready? And they said, yes. So on November 7th, we will get an update to what that program is going to look like, or could possibly look like for us replicating it here in Raleigh. So I know, I understand your frustration. I understand what you're saying, because there are many aspects that I agree with. That we don't feel like we're doing enough, Mama Kai. I will also point you guys that our county, which Mama Kai sits on the county and city joint task force, they are tasked with social services. And so I'm really trying tap into what resources they have, how much money they have. The city's resources typically go to infrastructure, and we're trying to make sure that their city functions well. But on top of that, we also recognize that we have a big unhoused population who need help. And so we want to do the best we can, but we need to do that in partnership. And unfortunately, as Mama Kai said, that it doesn't feel like that's actually happening at the moment. So to amplify those concerns, we will continue to do so. But I really do appreciate you uplifting that, Mama Kai, and also sharing your experience on the task force, because we do need to get better for sure. Anything else? Anything else? Any other questions? All right, well, I'm gonna give you back your meeting. Larry, I'm sorry I took your seat. Thank you, guys.
Councilor Jones, Town Hall. That was great.
Sorry.
All right. Well, we're fortunately tonight, we're zipping right along. I had a good meeting tonight. Couple of things from me. Christina touched on the budget. Those of you that have not been to a budget listening session, I encourage you to go, although District A was one of the first and I attended, and well, go to the website. There could have been more detail, I think, in the meeting, and I think, but on a positive note, the budget people are supposed to be our November meeting. So any questions you may have for the budget, especially the pennies per dollar that you're paying and don't know you're paying, that may be one of the questions you want to ask. I have to send you all to the budget website though. There is a proposal to spend, believe it or not, $1,000 per district. It sounds great, but it comes with a caveat. The choices of where to spend that money are at your discretion. There is a suggestion of about, I think, 8 different options for you to decide. You have $1,000 to spend per district based on the choices that.
200,000, yes.
200.
200,000.
Yeah, it's not 1,000.
Thousands, nothing.
There's no.
200,000?
It's $1 million that has been allocated for what's called participatory budgeting, of which each district gets $200,000 to spend.
Wow, I'm corrected. $200,000 to spend. Unfortunately, won't cover any projects in Midtown, but they do have other options, like one of which was to provide money to nonprofits. I favor that one. I also put in for benches at Eastgate Park. So my point is, go to the budget website. You will see down there that you have the option to decide how you want to spend your money within your district and go ahead and make your request. Do not let the money go to waste. So let's see, I've sent you to the city website for Six Forks. I've sent you to the city website for the budget department. And that when you go by department, just click on the budget group and you will find it right on their main page, I believe. As far as Six Forks, you have to go to the project page and put in Six Forks. I think for me, that's about it. My last item tonight, last meeting, I mentioned to you to start thinking about the holidays. I had to put in a reservation for the community center. So I made a decision to be altered. In November, our 4th Monday falls just after Thanksgiving. Unless anybody has an objection, I intend to keep it that way. I tend to have the budget people come to see us. I figure maybe if I talk about money, maybe people will come to the meeting in November. And then in December, I moved our meeting, which would have fallen on Christmas, to a week earlier. I think it's the 18th of December. So mark your calendars accordingly. And for the December meeting, I'm thinking we'll just have an informal get together, perhaps, maybe a potluck or something like that. A very informal meeting, and unless we have something pressing to discuss, like maybe Six Forks. But I don't want to do it as a formal meeting. I'd rather do it as an informal meeting where everybody gets to talk to each other and basically have a good time. So mark your calendars for December if you happen to be in town. And as far as I know, that's pretty much it for me. I'll try to get the video out pretty quickly. And thank you to Holly tonight for taking minutes for us and for Ted Well, it just goes right on out. And Shane assisting Ted to do the video work and the webcam portion of it. Takes a team to get this thing done. And I found I have a lot of good co-hosts in my audience tonight that could probably do a better job than I'm doing. So until next month, right after Thanksgiving, I wish everybody a happy holiday and don't eat too much or send me the turkey. And yes, Ted,
Okay.
go ahead.
The role of nonprofits, Mama Kay made some remarks about needs not being met. After the last 3 years, I've been president of the Wake County Medical Society. You need to know we have, at least 6 top-notch, safety net clinics operating in Wake County that are doing incredible work. It's not meeting all the needs, but it's doing a lot. And I think it always use more help. I think if you have, they can use volunteers. And I think addressing a lot of these social issues really needs to be done by a combination of government and nonprofits and having people volunteer. So I think it's not, don't just complain to your county commissioner or your city commission representative. I think get out and help these nonprofits, and that can make a big difference too.
Ted, if you send me the connection point for that, I'll make sure we get it in the minutes and get it out to the public.
What?
The safety net connection.
I'll send it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay. It was a pleasure to see y'all. And remember the 2 touch point meetings. If you want to have a test. Mary Black's Town Hall, Sertoma Park, Wednesday, 6 o'clock. Transit and transportation. I know that means you got to go downtown if you want to join into that one. Especially, and if you want to ask questions, you can't do it online, unfortunately. So the best input would be to show up, ask your questions, and get the city to do what they've obligated themselves to do. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay, have a great night. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.